so I'm sure you all have seen it. So to get started, why are or how are patients using AI? The research is just starting to get done. There have been more and more folks interested in this, specifically in the academic space. But one of the things that was interesting is specifically in 2025, Harvard Business Review found that the top use for turning to AI was actually therapy slash companionship. One of the things that was really interesting and a big conversation in my circles was why they ended up clustering therapy and companionship together. But that's a different story. One of the most recent articles that came out is that 1 in 8 US adolescents and young adults use chatbots for mental health advice. Um, the adult numbers tend to vary depending on the study, but there's also quite a number of adults who use this, and especially adults who both use AI and also have some sort of mental health issues are much more likely, as you could imagine, to use AI for these purposes. Um, One of the more recent things that came out of actually OpenAI that owns ChatGPT is that um, they presented this as like very low numbers, but if you actually dig down to how many users they have, it's quite alarming. So 0.15% of ChatGPT users have conversations that include explicit indicators of potential suicidal planning and intent, which translates to 1.2 million users a week. This is on a weekly basis, and 0.07% show possible signs of mental health emergencies related to psychosis and mania, which is another big topic that we've been seeing. And that's a little over 500,000 users. So as you can imagine, that's a large number of folks turning to this. And this isn't, individuals just turning for advice. This is people who are having likely acute mental health crises. So the relevant categories of use that we're going to talk about is this quote unquote therapy. People coming in and wanting, kind of explicitly mental health advice. Again, therapy is very much in quotes because AI is not providing therapy, but people can experience it as such. And the second category that I kind of use as the descriptor for the work that I do, which is emotional support and life guidance. I think that a lot of people don't go on to something like ChatGPT and say, "Hi, I want you to be my therapist." I think if I had to guess, and I'm actually going to be starting research on this very shortly, I think that the way that some of these things start is somebody's like, my partner said this thing, I don't know how to react. And then they go from there, this sort of like, what should I do? Which then starts to lend itself towards moving closer and closer to mental health issues. And then lastly, companionship. This presentation won't be predominantly about companionship. We'll touch on it a little bit, but one of the things that's increasingly happening, as somebody previously said, somebody is using AI as a friend. People are seeking friendship from AIs. People are seeking, romantic relationships from AIs, and there's actually kind of robust like micro communities of people discussing how they use AI, as a life partner. And it's something that is definitely worth keeping an eye on for patients. So I'm gonna pause here for folks to take a look at this, but I'll just read a couple of sentences. I talk to ChatGPT when I am sad or worried. To me, ChatGPT feels like I'm talking to someone who understands me. Even if I know the way it responds and how understanding it is programmed into it, it feels really nice to read its words of encouragement. And then the other thing that I'll point out here, this comes up a lot, which is probably relevant for clinicians. Humans are quick to judge. Well, I find that when I talk to ChatGPT, at least he has a soft tone and says everything to help me keep going. So this is a post pulled directly from one of the threads focused on folks using ChatGPT or different AIs as a therapist. And this is a pretty consistent sentiment that you'll see across there. One of the things to note is the use of the term he, right? This anthropomorphization or personification of this technology. And why are patients using AI? So the first thing is it's readily available 24/7, oftentimes even without a subscription. So people have access to it all the time. There could be a loneliness or a lack of existing connections, which I think, right now we're talking about the loneliness, epidemic in the United States, or just lack of deeper social connections. This might be one of the things that people are turning to AI for. And on that flip side, it does feel like connection and support. As you saw in the previous quote, people do feel supported by this technology. they feel like they're not being judged, like with a human. That's something that comes up. And I don't know if that's, I imagine that's a self-perception issue, but that's something that is pretty consistent. And then we have this piece of sounding board for ideas. Sometimes when people engage with AI, one of the places where it could actually start to go wrong is when they start to use it for developing ideas. This is kind of where people start to, they could end up um, going further and further out into, edge ideas. Oftentimes people can engage in something like hyperfixation with science or technology or believing that they have these like novel um, findings. And then lastly, honestly, it's just encouragement. We'll talk a little bit about how AI design is created to keep people using it. But one of the biggest ways it does that is just through active encouragement. And if folks haven't tried it out, honestly, just going on ChatGPT and asking it what it thinks of an idea, oftentimes they'll be like, wow, such a good idea. That's so thoughtful of you. That's so, and it's really going to be quite